about a month again. Maybe it's been more than that. Maybe. I'm a little bit out of sync here. Life has been busy. Life has been hectic. But there's a topic I've been wanting to come on and talk about ever since the new movie from this series of films released. And yeah, it's taken me this long to get round to doing it. But I thought, why not make this a bit special? Why not dive into this franchise to the fullest extent that I can, or I'm willing to do. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes hit cinemas over a month ago now, and I went to see it. I'm a big fan of this franchise, and when I say that, I don't just mean the new 3 films that came before this one. I mean, I like the original 5 as well. And I'm not going to say that I like it, but I have seen the Tim Burton 2001 remake as well. And I thought, why not, in the build-up to talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, why don't we just go over all of the 9 films that come before? That's right, we've got 10 films to talk about today, folks. So I'm going to go as quickly as I can. Disclaimer before we start, I am well overdue for a haircut. My hair looks horrible and it keeps getting in my face and I look like I have a Beatles/Jedward haircut. Also, we're in the summer, so as per usual, my hay fever's playing up. So if I start doing it's because of hay fever. I swear. So let's get started. Planet of the Apes fans, are you ready? We're going to take a big, deep dive into this franchise. Coming up first, we have, of course, the 1968 original movie Planet of the Apes. This came out in a time where films were really getting quite interesting. We had around this period of time masterpieces like 2001: A Space Odyssey released, and Sci-Fi was just picking up. With things like that, you could just see that the movie industry was just starting to finally come alive. That isn't no disrespect to some of the brilliant films we had from the 30s, 40s and 50s that come before, but cinema was finally, due to technology, being allowed to advance more, and that's why we got things like 2001 and Planet of the Apes. Looking back at this film and the original 5, they look cheesy as hell. The monkeys look ridiculous, but you need to put yourself in the period of time when this come out, and I think for the time, they look bloody great. And even today, compared to some other older science fiction horror things that were coming out around this period of time, I think they look great in comparison. I think they've aged like fine wine. I love going back to this period of time for movies because of the nostalgia that you get for things like this. You have to take it all with a pinch of salt nowadays, but I love it. There's something nostalgic about it. There's something brilliant about going back to this period of time for movies, and they look great for what they are. Background with me and these films, I watched all of the original films around the time that Rise of the Planet of the Apes come out, which was 2011, so I'm well acquainted with these films. I haven't just watched them recently. I want people to know that I actually do have a bit of history of watching these films a few times. I've watched these original 5 films probably near 10 times each. So the first one, of course, as I say, 1968. I have notes here because I can't remember everything about all these films off the top of my head. So this one was directed by Franklin J. Schaffler. Definitely pronouncing that wrong. I apologise. And of course it's starring Charlton Heston, who we all know. Big actor, great actor. It's interesting that he picked a film like this to do, but he is so great in this role. And of course it's the classic story which sees 3 pilots crash land on their expedition, and the planet they land on turns out to be inhabited by apes. There's been a flip with the apes being the dominant species, the intelligent ones, and the humans being the not near as intelligent, cavemen-like people. It's a really, really cool concept, and the film has so much fun with it. And you can tell that it's actually quite a clever film because it really doesn't force-feed all of this down your throat as well. There's large portions of this film in the first act where there is no dialogue. You are just taking this world in. And it's great because it puts you in the mindset of the astronauts. You're discovering this world with them. You slowly get more and more immersed into it until finally the scary apes on horses turn up. And then the film becomes the sci-fi roller coaster that we know and love. And it is just a lot of fun. There's some very cheesy moments to it, don't get me wrong, but I think that this film has an energy about it which this franchise has never really recaptured, even with the new films. And then of course we get to the end of the movie where you have what was at the time probably quite an epic moment. Like, what a cliffhanger. I don't know how I would have felt in 1968 if that ended like that, because movies weren't what they are today where you'd go, oh my god, I can't wait till the next one comes out in 2 years. Back then, would people have been like, oh, we're going to get another one, right? Are we going to get another one? Surely they're going to do another one. Thankfully, they obviously did. They've done a few more. But that ending, great. I mean, it's kind of predictable, I think, that they ended up in the future watching it today. But At the time, I don't know how people would have felt. But I loved it. I thought it was a great ending, and this is a great movie. As I say, it has its cheesy moments. Is it perfect? No. Some people, will they watch it back today and probably laugh at the prosthetics? Absolutely. I know a lot of my friends and like my sister, if I was to show them this movie, they would probably laugh their way through it. But I feel like film people, people who appreciate older movies like this, would appreciate this one. It's good. It's fun. It's just a really, really classic movie for its time. And it really got a lot of these big blockbuster sci-fi franchises that were to come. It was one of the first. It gave them probably an inkling of what they could become. And, you know, it's a really good film. So yeah, Planet of the Apes, first one.
Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
Beneath Planet of the Apes. Now, I don't know a great deal about the backstory of this one, but I'm imagining there was some probably problems behind the scenes on this one, because Charlton Heston, obviously, is barely in this one. I don't know whether he actually just didn't really want to return, because I get that impression from the amount of screen time he has in this one. So instead, under the director of Ted Post, we get a new lead actor. James Franciscus, if I'm pronouncing that right, takes on the leading role of this movie. And for what it is, he's quite good in it. I think the issue with this movie is the first two acts are almost scene for scene of the first movie. There's not much originality to this, it's almost a copy and paste, and the story that this film really wanted to tell is all in the final act. And when you get to the final act, it is quite exciting, but then there's a large portion of it which feels quite rushed. And I think there's a lot of fun still to be had with this movie. I do enjoy it, and there's some really fantastic aspects about it. But you can tell that maybe this film didn't go the way the original vision was meant to go. It's quite a messy movie. It is quite a messy movie. The plot structure is just all over the place and the editing's not great. And the effects as well. Again, I know the period of time when this came out, and I know that these films didn't exactly have the biggest budget ever, but some of the effects are like the lightning scene. So yeah, Beneath Planet of the Apes. I know that this isn't people's favourite one of the originals, but I kind of like it because it's still in the future. It's in that, dystopian world where the apes run things and the humans are obviously at the bottom of the food chain. And I find that really interesting and I like being in that world. So I do really quite enjoy this one still, even though I can see the obvious problems with it and bit of a messy movie. But Beneath, I still think it's a decent film. I had fun with it. So yeah, we're going to move swiftly on. (1971). Very, very quickly after this one, they turned around the films after this. They started to pump them out back to back. We have Escape from Planet of the Apes. How are they going to follow up Beneath? The Earth blew up. The planet destroyed, all the characters dead. No, our two main apes, Zera and Cornelius, both escaped along with another ape whose name I've forgotten. And they go back to present day, they go back to 1971 in the spaceship which the astronauts came in. I think it's the astronauts from Beneath. I think they get in their ship. I can't actually remember, but they get in one of the ships which landed, which brought the astronauts to the future. And while the other ape doesn't really bring much to the plot, Cornelius and Zera must fit in with present day. This is quite a popular movie, I think, with the Planet of the Apes fans. I think that the older fans especially really like this movie. And I'm going to be honest, of the original 5, this is the only one I'm not a big fan on. I just don't really like that whole going from the future back to the past thing. It's something that never really works well with these kind of things. I was never the biggest fan of when Star Trek done it either, but I've warmed to that movie a bit more. And I think Star Trek definitely did it better than Planet of the Apes. But yeah, it comes off a bit cringy quite a lot of the times. There's a few scenes where the dialogue just icks me out. If that's a thing, if icks me out is a thing, I don't know. I watched it and there are just a lot of dialogue scenes where I'm like, this just doesn't feel natural, and I'm watching real cringed out watching a lot of these scenes.
Does the other one talk?
Only when she lets me.
However, there is a big however. A bit like Beneath, but not as good. The film finds its feet in its final act. It takes on a much darker approach, and I really appreciate that. And again, the ending of the film has some real balls, killing off Zira and Cornelius. Of course, very sad it's the last time we see Kim Hunter in these films, because obviously she's been in all three of the originals, and I thought she'd done a great job playing Zira. But I really do like the ending, and I thought it was kind of obvious what happened with their kid, but it's really cool and it sets up the sequels perfectly. I think it does all of that really well. Just not a big fan on the first two acts, say for me. They're just not, it's not very entertaining. A lot of the dialogue's really cringe. I'm not expecting to get Oscar-worthy dialogue in these films, but it could have been better still. And I compare it to Beneath in saying, again, the final act's the best, and the first two acts are just but the difference is, with Beneath, I really like being in the world that we're in there. Escape, I didn't as much. So, yeah. Escape, it's not a terrible movie, by any means. It's not awful, I've seen far worse. It's just not a film I particularly connect with, and it's a shame. But anyway, on to the next ones. 1972's Conquest is directed by J. Lee Thompson, and he's the only director who directs two of these films, as he also directs the next one as well, Battle, but we'll get to that. So this one picks up with a young adult version of Zira's and Cornelius' son, Caesar. Does that name sound familiar to the new fans? And he's being played by Roddy McDowall, who, of course, played Cornelius. So it's great. He's sticking about, and, you know, he does a really good job at making him feel just like Cornelius' son. And I'm really pleased that they kept him on to play this role, because it just works well. And this is all about the Apes uprising, which of course we'll talk about again when we get to the newer films. But I think that there's a really cool story here to tell, and again, I think they execute it pretty well. Ricardo Montalban, I think is how you pronounce his name, is in this film as well, who I really like. Most people know him as Khan from Star Trek. Talking about Star Trek again, it seems to be coming up a lot today. Or maybe you're too young for that, and you know him from Spy Kids as the granddad, because I'd be lying if I said that's not where I saw him first as well. And I think he does a great job, and I like the connection that him and Caesar have in these films, and I think it's replicated quite well in the newer films with like the father-son thing with James Franco's character and Caesar, which we'll get to. And I think it all feels quite natural how quickly the apes sort of rise up as well, and I think they do a good job of showing that, and showing how evil and manipulative these select humans are that we're seeing here, these big corporation characters. And I think it's something that might have been reflected on what was going on in society back in 1972, and maybe, you know, today we could definitely reflect on stuff like that, and I think a lot of films do try to push that today, reflecting how just shit the world's got. But it's a very interesting story, and again, I love where it ends, and again, it sets us up for the next film. And I've got to say, I wonder back then if people were wondering how many more films is this going to go on for? Did they know that the next one was going to be the last one? But let's head into it. Battle for the Planet of the Apes, of course, is the conclusion of the original 5 films. And this one here is pretty much what it says on the tin. It's the battle for this new world that Caesar has created. There's a bad monkey, a bad ape. And, you know, the film itself doesn't have a massive story to tell. It's now about they've got their world, now it's about controlling it, making it better. The one they left behind, and maybe the one that we saw at the start of this franchise. And with that, there's a lot of interesting sequences in this, and there's a lot of interesting characters. I like Caesar's relationship with his son. They do something with his son as well, which is quite ballsy. I remember watching this for the first time nearly 10 years ago, probably more than 10 years ago now, actually. And I remember being very surprised at the scenes with his son involving a tree. If you've seen it, you know, I guess. But yeah, it's a good film, and I really think it's a nice ending to this franchise, and it is the perfect point to end it. They didn't milk it, they didn't go on longer than it needed to. This was a good ending point, and I liked it. And that brings us to the end of the original 5 films. Yeah, these films, you know, I know they're old, I know they're looking pretty dated in a lot of people's eyes, but, you know, they're fun, and I've got a tremendous amount of respect for them. Every time I watch them, I can never just watch one. I always end up watching the first one, and then I have to watch the other 4 as well. They're really good films. They've got a soft spot in my heart. Okay, before we get on to the new ones, let's quickly breeze through this one. Tim Burton had a bash at this franchise in 2001 with his remake? I mean, every Planet of the Apes film after the original has, you know, something before the title. Beneath, you know, Kingdom, Dawn, Conquest. This one's just back to Planet of the Apes, which I'm not a fan of that, but I suppose it is a reboot, so we'll take it for what it is. It's just a horrendous movie. I want to say, though, I respect the vision that Tim Burton had. He had a vision, he had an idea to make it unique, to make it his own. So for that much, I do respect that he tried to do his own thing. Failed at it, quite miserably. The prosthetics look okay as well. I guess I'll add that in there as well. But no, I'm done with the positives. Mark Wahlberg was just terribly miscast. He just doesn't fit this franchise at all. I can't take him seriously in this role at all. You have such a good supporting cast as well. Tim Roth, really great as the villain when he's allowed to be. Helena Bonham Carter, what a fantastic actress. Even Paul Giamatti's in this, with the little screen time he gets, and the atrocious character he's playing. Even he's trying his best. I feel like they all thought they were going to be in this epic movie, and then it come out, and it was just a horrendous piece of shit. So yeah, the remake, it's just crap. It's just a bad movie. Turning the page on my notes. Woo, we're on to the new 4 films. Rise of the Planet of the Apes. This was my first Planet of the Apes film, and I remember watching this with my granddad, who's no longer here, and every time I watch this movie, I have the most fond memories of watching it with him. I remember him loving this movie. I think he was a fan of the originals, which is why he wanted to watch this one with me. Unfortunately, I think he was alive when Dawn came out, but he never saw it. I mean, he weren't really a big movie person anyway, but you know, he never got to see how this trilogy concluded. But I remember him being a big fan of Rise, so I have very nice memories of this film with him. This film is directed by Rupert White, who does a surprisingly really good job with this film, and I think this film definitely brings a lot of people back to the franchise. It introduced me to the franchise. This is the film which I have to thank for getting me into these films. And as I say, after I watched this one, I went back and watched all 6 of the other films. It also stars Hollywood's favourite star, James Franco. And I love what this movie does. It doesn't just say, oh look, apes have got smart and they're going to take over. There's like a human virus going about. And again, it delves into what Conquest did, this corporation thing of, there's a lot of assholes in the world. Do humans deserve this planet? And I think there's a really good undertone there with its story and what drives it forward. There's some creepy scenes as well, and I've got to say that the apes look spectacular. Andy Serkis is the man. He's one of my favourite actors ever. You know, he's brilliant in almost everything he's in. He was great as Gollum, obviously. The Peter Jackson King Kong film, he was great in the doing King Kong himself and the performance he had in that movie. Even more recently, his performance in the Andor show. One of the highlights of that show. The man is just brilliant, and I think Caesar is his best role. I'm sorry, Lord of the Rings fans, I'm sorry, but, you know, Gollum's great, but Caesar, there's a lot more character to him. He has a lot more to do here, and throughout these 3 films, whew, Caesar is the best character in all of these movies. I don't care what you say, Caesar, this is one of the best developed characters I've seen in any movie. Where he goes from here, being this, obviously, baby ape that's taken into James Franco's house, and we see him grow up here and learn about what his species is put through, the experiments, the animal abuse, seeing him rise up and take his people, his species, out of the dark and into the forest, giving them freedom. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant story here, and they only develop that more in the next 2, but, you know, it's just fantastic. It's the weakest, probably, of this trilogy, yes, but it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of heart to it. It's a really good story. The pacing all round is great. It's the best one since the original. It's a really good film. Then we go to 2014 with Dawn. Matt Reeves coming onto the scene. One of the best current directors, especially when it comes to the more blockbuster stuff. His new The Batman, chef's kiss. The best Batman film. Sorry, Dark Knight fans. Sorry. I don't care though. I don't care. Dawn. I can't believe how good the apes look in this one. I mean, they looked really good in Rise. But, you know, 2011, 2014, you're not expecting a huge upgrade. But you get a huge upgrade. They just look insanely good. And where they take the story here, again, this comes back to Battle of the Planet of the Apes for me. You've now got ape versus ape. Cobra, who we are introduced to in Rise. But he is such a great villain. He's probably the best villain this franchise has had. Cobra, just so cool. This twisted monkey who's just driven by revenge and anger. And he sees an opportunity to go to war with the humans. And he takes it. He throws Caesar under the bus and takes control. And then you have to see Caesar take control back. And look at the mistakes that Koba's made. And himself. And it's a brilliant story. Along with that, you get some really, really great characters in this as well. Gary Oldman, one of my favourite actors ever, is in this. And he doesn't actually have a huge part. And you sort of almost forget he's in this franchise because he hasn't got the biggest part. But he's great still. He's Gary Oldman. He's not going to be bad. And Jason Clarke's in this as well, who gives a surprisingly really good performance. One of the best performances of his career. And if you're like me and was wondering what happened to his character, check out a deleted scene from War for the Planet of the Apes. Yeah. His character does actually have an ending, and I believe it's in one of the novels as well, which comes out, which is set between Dawn and War. But Dawn is pretty flawless, to be honest. I think it is actually a brilliant movie. Yeah, it's just fantastic. I can't praise this film enough. But can they top it? Yes, they can. War for the Planet of the Apes is the best Planet of the Apes film. 2017 gave us an absolute masterpiece of a film. It is so good! So good! Like, War... films about talking monkeys have no right to be this good. Especially 50 years after the original. This franchise, you know, it's getting on now. It's an old franchise. And it's about talking monkeys ruling the planet. It has no right to be this good. But War is... it's so... I can't believe how much I like this film. I just think it is fucking brilliant. It opens with just this heartbreak tragedy. The humans are nearly done. They're desperate. And Woody Harrelson's character comes in. A human who is a bit like Koba. Revenge driven. He's done. He just wants to kill all the apes. Especially Caesar. He's got a vendetta against him. Kills his family. And Caesar is now becoming like Koba. Which is why he sees Koba all the time. He's revenge driven. And because of that, he slips up. All these people are captured by Woody Harrelson's character. They're all going to die. They're being put through hard labour, tortured. Caesar's got to rise up. It's just a lot to unpack, this movie, and you get so connected to all these characters that you've met, like Rocket and Maurice, throughout these films. I can't believe I remember these apes' names. That's how much these characters mean to me. They're just so well written in this one. The apes look so good as well, especially when they're in the snow and seeing it on their fur. It's unbelievable how good it looks. And then the ending as well, truly heartbreaking, and it comes full circle back to what the original film is. Or we thought, because they've obviously made a new one. But yeah, it's just fucking brilliant, this film. It's so good. Don't get me wrong, Dawn is really, really close behind it. But for me, War is the best one. It's unbelievable how good it is. Andy Serkis, the man, Matt Reeves, brilliant. I can't give you a fault with this film. It's just brilliant. 2024. It was a long wait. Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes comes out. I was worried. Disney have their grubby hands on it, and we know how that tends to go with franchises.
We've decoded the intel from the First Order spy, and it confirms the worst. Somehow Palpatine returned.
Long have I waited for my grandchild to come home.
Your grandchild?
Technically the daughter of my own clone, a perfect replica of me, except nothing like me in any way. Think he worked at a shoe store. Anyway, you got lost in the desert for 20 years and somehow got trained by Luke Skywalker. All part of my plan.
Sounds like you were winging it.
I think you'll find I leave nothing to chance.
I don't actually get that happy anymore when I see Disney getting their hands on things. It worries me more than anything, with good reason.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
But Kingdom was a very entertaining time. Directed by Wes Ball, who done the Maze Runner films, and I don't mind them. They're nothing to go shouting about, but I wasn't expecting anything great. And to be honest, this is better than all three Maze Runner films. I was pleasantly surprised that this was better than I thought. This film has some slow and some boring moments to it, I will admit. It's the weakest of the new four, but it's still very good. Once again, the apes look amazing. Not quite as good as War, I don't think, but they still look amazing. And it's set, I believe, 500 years in the future? I know it's set quite far in the future. Maybe I've got that wrong. The main thing with this film is it does actually have a purpose. It has a story to tell, which I like. And with that, you can see it's executed pretty well. It has a fun villain as well. I mean, the villain's really fun. He's not as good as Cobra, obviously, but he's still a fun villain. He's threatening, and he drives the plot forward, and he gives you a really cool, epic showdown between him and the main hero. Speaking of the main hero, Noah, brand new ape, doesn't really have any connections to anyone other than I'm pretty confident in saying he's going to be a descendant of Caesar. I don't know how we're going to find this out or when, but I'm guessing at some point we will. Owen Teague, I think is how you say his name, plays Noah, and I think he does a great job, and I'm really excited to see where they take this character in the next 2 films, because apparently this is going to be a trilogy again. And after what they've done with Caesar in 3 films, I'm really hoping that they can do something similar, because there's a lot of potential for this character, and another 2 films, let's see where we go with him. And Freya Allen is in this as well as our human character. We always sort of get one human character that we get a lot of time with in each of these newer films. And she's really good in the film as well, for a fair few reasons. But yeah, Kingdom, it didn't feel forced. And it felt like, yes, okay, there's a point to this movie. They have a story to tell. And I'm pleased they made it. I'm pleased they extended this trilogy. The one we got with Caesar was so good, but I'm pleased that they've separated this one enough and this is now its own thing, but it is still a carry-on. I think they've done this perfectly, to be honest. Was this film brilliant? No, it has a few issues. Definitely could have been better, but it was very entertaining. It was a very good film. Compared to a lot of the crap blockbusters we get nowadays, this is one of the better ones. So to summarise this franchise, I think the original 5 films are a lot of fun. I definitely think you should go watch them if you haven't already. Yes, they're obviously dated. They're nearly 50 years old. But for what they are, they're really fun. And if you like the new ones, just look at these as their cheesy grandparents.
We're going into the self-catering holiday trade.
Oh, what, on 200 nicker?
Yeah, well, we're starting in a small way.
Well, you got a Wendy house?
Because it's what they are. And they're really good. They're really fun. Other than Escape. For me, the Tim Burton one, dog shit. I'm not even going to go there again. The new trilogy, great. Dawn is pretty incredible, but War is one of my favourite movies of the last 20 years. And then the new one, Kingdom, I'm very happy with it, and I'm very excited to see where the new trilogy goes. Let's quickly rank these films from my least favourite to my favourite. But if you follow me on Letterboxd, you already know where this is going, because I've made a list on Letterboxd. So if you're not following me on Letterboxd, maybe you should be. So my least favourite is obviously going to be the 2001 Tim Burton film, and then we're going to go to Escape, then Battle, then Conquest, then Beneath. Then we're going to have our brand new film here, Kingdom. And then we're going to go to Rise, the one that got me into this. The original film comes in next. My top 2, no surprise, it's Dawn, and War is my favourite. And yeah, obviously this is just my list. I hope that you guys can appreciate it. And I'd love to know what your guys' ranking would be in the comments below. So let me know. I'll be very, very excited to read through them all. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I apologise about the gap between these videos. They just take a long time to make, and I'm a much busier person than I was last year. I've got so much going on. But I've got a lot of videos I want to make. I want to do something for Deadpool and Wolverine when it comes out. The new season of Doctor Who's just about to finish. Hell, it might even be finished by the time this video comes out. I don't know. So there's a lot of good topics coming up that I want to talk about. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed my recap of the Planet of the Apes films. That's it. See you next time.